Hello and welcome. It's the Cardboard Alchemy Friday stream, or whenever you're watching this. I'm Peter Vaughan, and we are live. We're talking about games. We're going behind the scenes at a board game publisher. We can talk about the games we make: Flamecraft, Critter Kitchen, Andromeda's Edge, two of which are coming out this year, and one that has exciting new things to talk about. Or we can talk about what games you're playing this weekend, just what games you've played lately. We are generally doing just ask questions. We've got Rosie in the chat. She'll come on a little bit later too. We'll just be talking to everybody. Hello, Axel. It's good to see you. And yeah, it's answering any questions you have or talking about anything publishing, design, game making. Right? That's what we're doing today. So yeah, I don't have any official topics other than to sort of catch you up on where we're at. This is a very busy time for Cardboard Alchemy because we are getting two games out the door. As I said, Andromeda's Edge, Critter Kitchen, both coming out this year. If we can get everything, there's one definitely coming out. The other one is every day trying to make sure it also comes out this year. But it's exciting because Andromeda's Edge is at this point now where I believe Monday, could be Monday, we will be getting a massive box. It's the first mass-produced copy of the game where if everything looks all good, then we're going. The thing is printing, solidly going forward. And we're at that point, too, where lots of little things are back and forth with the plant about tiny details. They've packed the box, and when I open it, I'm going to find out if everything's packed exactly the way I was thinking it was going to be packed. They're making like little changes at the last minute to say like, oh, we're going to protect the punch boards, we're going to do this, and oh, we noticed something on this file, and there's all sorts of little tiny things that happen at this moment. But and I'm not going to say this in a bad way. There's also at this moment some compromises and things that happen where the absolute thing you were kind of hoping for, like for example, we heard that some of the tokens that are wooden tokens were not perfect in this run, and so they're already sending me notes of like, this isn't right, we're gonna fix this. And so you have all these things where along the way they might say, hey, a mini can't have the piece exactly the way you want it, can we do it this way? Hey, the color here isn't quite the Pantone you were talking about, the card here has to be made a gloss card, is that okay? And all these decisions, some of them are minor and some of them are like they cost money, and some of them don't cost money but are sort of just objectively not the art style we wanted or just a thing we wanted. The production phase is such a beast of a thing. Involves there isn't a day in 2024 except for Chinese holidays or my own holidays where I haven't been online with the manufacturer every night of Chinese working hours, which is something that there's no book on being a publisher. I'm sure some people don't work the same way as I do, but I have close contact with the manufacturer, and we go back and forth on a lot of different things. It's both rewarding and it's also exhausting. I love it. At the same time, wow, it's like, well, we're making two games with the same manufacturer right now, so literally every night is like between a sentence and another sentence could be a Critter Kitchen and an Andromeda's Edge conversation, just switching. Okay, these wood files, this metal token, this piece of paper, this box carton decision, this weight of this game, this sample decision, these game trays decisions, just like going back and forth. It is very exciting. And it's we're in the thick of it right now. So one of the things that we're in the thick of for Critter Kitchen is rulebook work as well as game trays work, because game trays is one of the final steps and rulebook is one of the final steps. And Rosie and I were talking, and Rosie came up with a great idea. Here, I'll bring Rosie on actually because it's more fun to have us both on here. Rosie had a fun idea to talk about. Does anyone have like a favorite rulebook out there? Because there's threads on the internet that go, oh, I've read bad ones. Oh, this one's awful. But we love to go the other way. Let's shout out someone who made a really great rule book. I'm going to cheat and tell everyone a story about a rule book that I had something to do with, but only because I've experienced bad rule books as well. I think I've told the story where my first rule book that I ever wrote, which was What the Food, was so bad that a podcast called it out as one of the worst rule books they've ever read. And it hurt me. I went away from that going, I've screwed up. I'm no good at this. And I realized afterwards they were right. I did make one of the worst rule books ever. And then what I did to counteract that is I worked really hard on the Letter Tycoon rule book. And I did that with Max Schubert, the artist who wanted to do the graphic design and lay the book out. And I'm really proud of that one. I think that one nails it so well because as you're reading the text of the rule book, there's an example right below each column. And so there's just no question. You're getting sort of a very consistent, here's how to play, here's the examples. Here's how to play, here's the examples. It really worked.
So what
But I would
makes
love
a
to hear.
bad rule book? I'm just curious, like, what are the factors that make things hard to learn? Because everyone learns in different ways. And
That's
if you are a
actually
rule
one
book
of the
learner, I'm just
challenges.
curious.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges that we have with rule books because if I pull our team, someone will say, I like it when rule books do A, and someone else will say, I like it when rule books don't do A. I like it when rule books do B and C, and someone will be like, I like B, but I hate C. I mean, there's tastes, right? I have my tastes, and I am trying to adjust to being on a team that has different tastes as my tastes, right? Sometimes I completely align. I think Brad and I align really well on rule books. But I'm finding that there are certain, I'll give everybody an example of something that's controversial in a rule book, and the chat can say what they think, and we'll go to some chat questions and stuff like that. But Luke Laurie, who I worked with on Dwellings of Eldervale, and he was the co-designer of Andromeda's Edge with Maximus Laurie. Luke likes to put a big terms section right up front, right after setup, like, here is the terms that you will start to see in this book, okay? He loves that stuff, loves it. Now, when I worked with Jeff Fraser, who's an editor who did our Flamecraft book, and Jeff Fraser also edited Dwellings of Eldervale with Luke, he would say, this is too much. I can't spend 2 pages on terms because the audience is lost. They don't know what they're reading anymore. Get to the gameplay, which Chris Strain on our team has been like, get to the gameplay.
Yeah.
But I will say I'm a hybrid where I think the terms, I like seeing a call out box that says, hey, you're about to read about what your character is going to go do. And in Dwellings, like, we would put up a box that said, this is what a region looks like. This is what a ruin is. Before you start reading, like, and deal out the dungeon tile, you're like, what am I looking at? So I like terms up front. I don't know if I think it should be as dry as a dictionary up front, but I do like when it's a visual terms section right before you go.
I think it depends on how big the game is in terms of how big that, because if it's like, here are the 6 words that we're going to use to determine resources and points and stuff, then that's a really good thing to know what those are. But if it's like 6 pages of, you
can get lost.
But like, I quite like footnotes. I think they're fun. If you're on the page and the term comes up, it's quite good to be able to go, oh, that's what that means, and then have the glossary at the back. But for me, it's all about story. I like to have what is this game right at the beginning? What's the story? Just to get myself into the mood of learning this game, because
I have to tell you, another funny story. We were working on the Andromeda's Edge rulebook, and I was trying to figure out where the objective of the game would fit. Would it go right before terms? Would it go right before set? Where was I going to put the objective? So I said, let me go look at Dwellings as a guide, because it's a very similar game. And I flipped through Dwellings and I go, we didn't write the objective on any page, anywhere. And nobody said on the internet to this day, I don't even think I've seen anyone say, where's the objective? So I was laughing because, of course, I always want that. And there it was, not in one of my game projects.
Because it's all about the dwellings.
Right.
I've got some comments here.
Let's see what people are saying.
A bad rulebook is one where you're left with questions about play but can't find the answer in the book. And I think that's quite common to happen
That's the
with a rule
thing.
book.
Yeah, the thing about that that's really tricky about writing rule books is you are writing a rule book for 3 people, okay? You're writing a rule book for the first time somebody reads it and is setting up. You're reading a rule book for the person who has a question and needs to know where to go, and you're writing a rule book for the person who hasn't played for 3 weeks and is trying to brush up. And sometimes those people are this you write it the same way for the 3, but sometimes you definitely don't need a paragraph that would help person 3, but helps person 1. It is very hard.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like it when I don't know how you feel about these. This is one to get opinions on. Do you like it when they give you like a first game setup that you only ever play on your first
Oh,
game?
that's a tough
Because
call.
Hamlet has a sort of
Yeah.
you all start with like one tile, but when you actually play Hamlet, you don't start with a tile at all. You get to pick and buy one. So it kind of
Yeah.
starts you off. I really liked it because it threw me straight into the game, but some people may not like being their first game being directed a bit more.
It is
But
very tough. I know that also, the people who make Root and Oath do that because they
mm,
had such a hard time with Vast. Vast made people very angry about the rule book. So what they decided to do on Root and on Oath is write a separate book that literally is everyone's first turn. I was playing a game of Oath, and I said, everybody, let's follow the
yeah,
prescribed first turn. Let's like you do what it says, get the exact card that it says, and everyone at the table was like, "Nah, we're not going to do that." And I was like, "I think that would have been good." The downside that they were citing is that if you get dealt card A and the thing tells you how to go to space, 1 with card A, it doesn't really sometimes teach you what happens if you go to location F and you have card 33. Like sometimes they don't do the job, I
and
will
also
say.
isn't I've not played those games, but from my understanding, those are games where some of your first choices can affect you for the rest of the game. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
In Oath,
So
I thought it was a really good guide because it says the thing that I really liked about what how the Oath one worked, even though it was abandoned by the table I was playing it, is that it said player 3 should attack the king immediately. And that's a move I wouldn't have thought of
yeah,
at all on my first game. I think that's why it was really important. It was trying to tell you you have to put pressure immediately on
mm,
the person with the power or you will lose and you don't want them to get too much power. And what was great about it is I was the only one that was following my prescribed thing, so I did the thing and it shook up the player who was in the lead. They didn't know you could be attacked that fast, and we all learned real fast
yeah.
how that worked. I think that was valuable, but it
But
depends on the game. I wouldn't
you
write
don't
one
want
of
to
those for the same
spend your
draft.
first game just making mistakes and going, "Oh, that's a real shame I didn't like
Yeah.
my first couple of choices, which are completely random when you're playing a game for the first time. Oh, that sort of messed me up for the next 4 hours, isn't Oath? Like, I just feel like
Yeah.
you may want a hint. I like a hint. I don't mind it a bit of a guide.
Yeah, so that's the other thing our team has been discussing is also tips. So do you want a rule book that says like, hey, by the way,
Mm,
you should probably grab this kind of a token first because that is what you need at the beginning of the game. The problem that we've found is if you write too many of those, and it's we're writing Critter Kitchen right now, and we feel like the tips are subjective. We could say, get a 7 value ingredient because that's the most important
mm,
thing. But if the 7 ingredient is the location everyone's going to go to, and you look at the rest of the board and you're like, that spice over there is the way better pick because
yeah,
of the board context, and that tip isn't going to really actually help you. It's a really
yeah.
tough call.
I think the one of the best ways I've found to like learn them is to play if there is a solo mode, play the solo mode to
Yeah.
learn it. Because often the solo mode gives you a few more hints and directions.
I'm also going to
Which
I'm going to read this comment. More games need to have a quick setup guide and a reference sheet on the back of the rule books. I want to give a shout out to one of the members on our team, which is Chris Strain, who did the rulebook for and designed and published Asking for Troubles. And in Asking for Troubles, the back page is how to teach this game to other people. It
that's
was really
cool.
kind of innovative. Nobody I've seen do that, where he's like, take this deck out first and explain this deck because that's the most important thing, the goal, blah, blah, blah. And then he would say, and now deal these out. Because I think he was also facing with his group, if you deal out 5 cards, everyone's distracted by the 5 cards. And
Yeah.
he's like, have everybody understand the spaces and the ships they have, and then these cards. It was really kind of an interesting.
Like every company will have that guide because they'll do it for their demoers. I mean, I have that
Right.
guide for Critic Kitchen from doing the 15 or 8-minute teach that I
Yeah.
learned for Essen, which we did sort of DM it. I ran people through it, the game for that time. So it's not like the whole teach, but it's interesting that every publisher would have that information, but like keep it.
Well, I will tell you why it doesn't make it into the books. Because practically speaking, a couple things happen. Number one, it doesn't have a place until it has like back of the book is one place. But a lot of times you're running out of room, and I don't know if everyone knows this, but in book publishing, they have to bind the book in quantities of 4 pages. Like you can't make a 6-page book. You have to go 4,
Mm.
8, 12, 16. If you have all this content and you're at 17 and there's a teach guide, you're like, well, that's out. We're going to
Yeah,
16. If
yeah.
you're at 13 and you have the teach guide, you're like, do we have 3 other pages? No. I mean, it's very tough to get it right. I remember Rado was mad because our prototype for Critter Kitchen had the credits on the back, but he's like, that's the most useless back I've ever seen. And I was like, well, sometimes that's how it goes. Like we're trying to move stuff around and that's how it ends up.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, I think the teach thing could be shared online or BGG. That's a really cool
Yeah, like
thing
that's
to
a good
share.
idea. We should actually, and I know Chris would probably support me on this. We should make teach guides because it was a really good idea. Not a lot of people do that.
Especially if you have taught the game before or played it before and you've never taught it. And then you're in a situation where you're like, oh, I'll be fine. I've played this before. This is
This is
happening right now.
this is a funny comment. Well, I appreciate it very much that the Rulebook of Dwellings had a separate solo and appendix that solved every problem. Now, there was a comment earlier about what happens when an expansion, and I feel like this is the same thing as a solo. Some of the problems is the main book says, okay, everyone who plays goes to set up 5 locations, and then the expansion or the solo will say, set up this 1 location, but not tell you about the 5 because it assumes you've read that book. And it is very hard to have a solo or an expansion completely rehash everything. So you often write them as if they're incomplete sentences. Like they're just these are your modifications, but you have to keep going back and forth, and it can be very, very tricky. I've
Yeah,
heard people online say, why can't you just re-release a book with every page that was there before and put solo in it? And I'm like, but that's costly. It's very costly to do that, you know?
Everdell did do a big book for their
Yeah.
big box. So I imagine when you're at a point where you have enough games to go in a big box, like Wingspan and like Everdell, maybe that's something you revisit to go, let's put it all together. But I
Yeah.
quite like having separate rule books so I can decide what I want to use.
Yeah. Well, the Dwellings of Eldervale Appendix is the first time I've ever made one of those books. That was very difficult, but I felt like we had to do it again in Andromeda's Edge, and it turned out to be even more difficult. Part of it is also because you think there's lots of questions you ask yourself, like, should the appendix cover every promo card, whether or not you own every promo card? There was a brief moment in Andromeda's Edge where we thought we would put like a legacy style blank areas where if you got the promo, you could then put a sticker in your appendix that explained the rules to the thing that you cared about, but that you weren't reading things that you didn't have. We eventually decided that that was silly, and we
That sounds like
decided to put everything in the appendix, and we marked it with expansion or promo, just
Yeah.
regardless, so that you were covered. But then when we wrote the appendix, we were trying to decide if a table of contents or a glossary was still necessary in the original book because it was starting to become 28 pages. And I was like, wow, what is the appendix supposed to like refer back to pages or not? It's this whole thing. It's hard sometimes, these books.
Sort of writing Lord of the Rings as a game.
And in Andromeda's Edge, there are 68 pages total that we wrote.
So
So
you've just done Andromeda's Edge rulebook, and
yeah.
there's Critter Kitchen rulebook. Doing such a big one like Andromeda's Edge, and then now Critter Kitchen, how does that feel? Does it feel any easier, or is it you've completely forgotten, like wiped the pain of doing such a big one,
Uh,
and now you're like, I'm back.
Theoretically, it's easier, but the challenge is still the same in some ways. How are you going to present this information? I've probably mentioned this story, but I also worked on the game We're Doomed. Now, We're Doomed is a game that you can literally learn in about a minute, 2 minutes
Mm,
tops. I can explain We're Doomed in person very fast. But
mm,
when I write step one, take the cards out of the box. I like the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It became a 12-page book for a thing that shouldn't even take that
mm,
long to say. And so Critter Kitchen is this other challenge of Critter Kitchen is actually kind of some parts of it are just intuitive, but when you have
mm.
to say, um, there's also this thing about rule books that if you don't say something, it can be interpreted as it's possible. So you literally have to go
Yeah.
over things like you may not take any more of these tokens. Like you literally have to create the do nots as well as the do's in a book.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
I
because
found that
the soup
yeah,
kitchen had a lot of questions when we were demoing them. You can take up to your amount at the soup
yeah,
kitchen of soup, and then they go, okay, well, I'm going to do that for all my other locations. No, you may take it as a substitute
yes.
or whatever ingredient you can take. So I always found that I can imagine writing that one's quite fun.
Yeah, and then Brad has often said too about writing letter tokens. Sometimes you'll have a phrase that says, "Okay, this is simple. The letter Q doubles the following thing." And then when you read that sentence to another person in English, that can have an entirely different meaning. You read the
Mm,
same sentence and you're like, "That allows me to do this," and you're like, "No, it doesn't. That's not what it says." It's like it's absolutely what it says because it doesn't say the following word, which would clue me into the fact that you can't do that loophole. So,
yeah.
so Critter Kitchen has been the same kind of challenge, but only because here's the difference. So Andromeda's Edge is complex from it's worker placement where everything stems from two actions, and so it has all of this gloss, all of this appendix to write, and all of these. This card could affect this card, kind of thing. In
Mm,
Critter Kitchen, while it is a simpler game, you have every critic provides a new rule, and every rumor provides a new rule, and every zoo chef provides a new rule. So, sorry, there's a package delivery at the moment. Sorry, no problem.
I just
Uh,
had my dinner delivered. You've got a package. It's good.
yeah, the package is very exciting.
Is it?
Secret. Yeah, well, it's flame-bound related stuff. I can't get into it at the moment. Uh, but we'll probably be mobbed.
I was
So
live dry brushing minis on Cozy Board Games when popped up the video that you sent of the. I mean, I don't think that one's a secret of what we got because
yeah,
we're bringing Andromeda's Edge to UK Games Expo to show
yeah,
people. But I saw that box and I was just like, and then they were like, "What did you see?" And I'm like, "I can't say because I don't know the full context yet."
yeah, yeah,
And then I
yeah.
got messages afterwards going, "What did you see?" And I'm like, "Oh, it wasn't. It was okay."
So the Critter Kitchen one is an interesting one because Um, so one of the designers, Peter, said, I would like to not have a glossary section because if you have a glossary section, I feel like we failed to be as clear as possible on the cards. And I said, well, I understand your point. Um, there's just so I'll give you an example. A critic comes out like the kangaroo, and the kangaroo says every 6 token is a 9.
Mm,
Okay. And Bobcat Flay says all of your meat and fish is +1. So immediately you say, well, if Bobcat picks up a 5, is it a 6 and does it flip to a 9? And the problem is you can't write that text on Bobcat and the kangaroo. You're just not going to write that on both of them. You're going to put something in the back that says, if you're playing kangaroo and Bobcat, like this is what happens, because it's just one of those curiosities of combos when combos happen, right?
Because we have so many cards and so
Yeah, there's a
many
lot of
combos that can
combos
happen.
that could happen.
I imagine there are games where they've got like 7 cards, and it's just like there are only this many combos, but the infinite
Yeah,
amounts that we've got to deal with.
there are games that don't combo as much, and then you can maybe get a simpler thing out of that. I feel like we definitely added module upon module, and I think that's what's so neat about Critter Kitchen is that you can actually play with restaurateurs, you can play with another Zoo Chef deck and carts. Thank you for asking that question. We decided to make it so that Bobcat only the kangaroo only flips natural 6s. So we don't give Bobcat that power. But each one of those decisions became a discussion like, is Bobcat too weak? If we don't give it to Bobcat, should Bobcat have it? If Bobcat gets it, what happens with the rabbit? And Bobcat, the rabbit doubles everything. So all of a sudden, is the Bobcat's carrot, the carrots? Well, the carrots are not related to the Bobcat's power, but you get what I mean. There was actually other cards that would start to affect it. And there's a cart in the expansion called Sauce, and Sauce adds +3. So if Bobcat has a 3 and you put Sauce on it, becomes a 6. Was that flippable by the kangaroo? All that stuff was fun to navigate.
I think Show Me the Paws is saying something that I was kind of about to say, which was we quite like it when people discover fun scenarios because it continues the conversation about the game. And we're always, I mean, the same with Flamecraft, we get a lot of questions about what if this shop and this shop, and this combo happens. It's fun to kind of discover those things and chat to people about it.
Some people do like to find that stuff and are not frustrated by it, so I appreciate that. In fact, Luke often says that kind of discussion in BGG, which is Board Game Geek for anyone who doesn't know, that those forums, that's a healthy sign that people care, right? If they're asking over there, it's because they want to know. And now there's some debates where someone will say, I was playing with my friend and he argued this and she argued that. And which one of us is right? Because literally it depends on like who wins the game. And that's some of those threads are like, no, I will fight for it because I would have won if it was this way. But I think it is healthy if a game has fun combos, fun things to discover. So those are, I don't mind them either. I just want to make sure that, here's a curious thing about rulebooks. In Flamecraft, we knew that there would be fancy dragon questions and there would be shop questions. And we decided to write the book to have every shop have a clarification. Sometimes when you're doing that, you'll actually get to a shop that's so easy to understand. You're like, there isn't a clarification. Do I omit that shop and then it looks like it's not there? Or do I literally write nothing to see here? So we tried to come up with a clarification for each one. And when we got to Fancy Dragons, we honestly felt like half of the Fancy Dragons did not need anything. So we decided to do a simple, and we were also tight on rulebook space. So we decided to do a very simple summary of these Fancy Dragons are kind of confusing, so we're going to clarify it. The rest you should figure out. But out of the ones that you should figure out, question after question comes about Buddy. Poor Buddy was not in the book. And people go like, how does Buddy work? And I said, oh, no, he's not clear. Someday we'll have to put Buddy, like sneaking back in there.
Buddy, and I get a lot of questions about Wishing Well.
Wishing Well, Boo Boo gets questions because...
Gold Rush?
No, Boo Boo is the one that you want 2 or less of an item. A lot of people ask, does 0 count? And we didn't think that was a thing we had to clarify. But it's heated sometimes in those forums. Like 0 absolutely doesn't count. No, 0 absolutely does count. And it does count in Flamecraft, by the way. So yes, Axel is saying the reason why you blind playtest is what one of those playtests is you hand someone the rule book and you let them read it and you shut up. You don't say anything,
Mm.
even when they're reading it completely wrong and setting it up completely wrong and playing something, and you're just like, oh no.
Are you like
Um,
behind like a glass mirror, a window mirror?
that would be like the video game industry. In the board game industry, we don't have the budget for that. So you're standing right there, hovering over them, going, "Oh God, that's terrible that you just
And
did
they're like,
that."
"Is this right?" And you're like, "Mm-hmm."
I can't tell you until about 10 minutes go by of actual suffering, and then you're like, "Okay, so it's you take this token, please."
Yeah,
Um,
that's
there
rough.
was actually one test of Alex Cutler's game Expansity, which I helped develop. And everyone kept getting a rulebook thing wrong over and over and over. And the thing was that commercial buildings and residential buildings had a different rule. And a lot of times in games, you're trying to avoid fiddly rules that are different between when you build something. If it's commercial, you do this, and if it's residential, you do this. Unfortunately, the game was built around them being different. So it was important that there were different rules. And we had it all in one block. Here's how to build a building, and it was in one block, and every test it failed. And a friend of mine, Tate Wu, said, "What if you were to separate the blocks?" I mean, it's a dumb thing that I was like, "Oh, so we'll separate the blocks," and all of a sudden, every tester completely got it, just instantly got it. And it was
Interesting.
because of a paragraph. Like we had to break the paragraph in a way that was more logical.
Tatewu's rule sheets for his little games are quite good. I quite like
Yeah.
Bo Bajong's
See,
little sheet, just an A4 sheet, folds up in this little way. Done.
Tim Chewin is here. Now,
Tim was playing
Tim,
some game that's really, really cold, or like he said, let the freeze begin or something. But he left the audio
uh,
on the story, so it sounded like he was in a walk-in freezer, and I thought it was really funny.
Wolfpack. On Tim's channel, the Wolfpack is a common theme, and we actually put the wolves into Andromeda's Edge just because of Tim's support of that game, and we decided to make a fun, unlockable faction if we got enough people to comment on one of the videos for Andromeda's Edge. So the Wolfpack is showing up in Andromeda's Edge.
That must be
Um,
such an amazing feeling for Tim that like your favorite game suddenly there's like a spiritual sequel and you get to have an impact on it.
yeah, that is a. I mean, it's interesting how the board game industry is really small. If you think about it, Rosie, you did a Flamecraft video. I saw that video. I was like, this person's great. They're already talking about our games. I saw Tim's dwellings video and knew right then and there he could make the Andromeda's Edge video because the passion for that style game was there, and it
Yeah.
was neat to work with him on that. And I also really like that so far Cardboard Alchemy has done that on every game. We've made a promo for somebody that's been tied together. So just to go over the Mission Catastrophe, we there was a channel that I used to work with. I don't know if he still does content, but the McGuire review did content, and he always had this bear next to him. And I don't know if you ever saw it, but he talks to the bear, and he does rule books, and then
Now I'm gonna
he
see
talk,
it.
as if it's as if the bear said something rude, and he would turn to the bear like, "No, absolutely not. We're not going to cover that rule or something." And it was really funny. He was a really nice guy, um, and so we put a bear card in Mission Catastrophe for him. And then on we also put a duck at the time for Quackalope. And then on Flamecraft, we decided to dedicate an entire shop to the Dice Tower because they were so helpful in a lot of things I've worked on, and they were really jazzed about that title. And so we put Tom in a shop and a promo. And then on Andromeda's Edge, we made the Wolf Pack. And so that's really exciting. We also made a tie to one of our games, Flamecraft, and that's pretty fun too. And then on Critter Kitchen, we tied something to Cosmo Octopus, which is another publisher, which is really fun. But we
Mm,
also tied something to Kim Joy, who helped us with our Potion Con and have fun getting the game launched. And I'm really excited for every time one of those. Like I can't wait to give Kim Joy her cards and say like you
same.
can have these fun, you know.
It's actually her birthday today, so happy birthday, Kim Joy.
Oh yeah, look at that! Happy birthday!
We might
I
get to
don't
see
know
her
what
at UK
you
Games Expo. I don't know. She might be there.
I
So
don't know
maybe we'll
what you
get to
do when you're a baker and it's your birthday. Do you bake your own
she had a sponsored post
cake?
where she made her own frog cake island. Yes.
I mean, why would you trust someone else to make your awesome cake, right? I think you would go, all right, this is what we're doing.
I've made my own birthday cake. I made a dark crystal Skeksis head for my
Oh man, that's awesome.
23rd. And it was, I'm a massive Dark Crystal fan, so it was the best thing ever.
We have a question on one of our cards. I saw the Pink Dragon and Extra Dragons available again in the EU shop. For everyone who doesn't know, we have two shops, one in the UK that serves the whole world except for the United States, and we have a United States shop. I also saw the promo card. I have the Dutch version, but what does reserve mean on the promo card? So reserve in Flamecraft, we're talking about Flamecraft, is a concept that you can take an enchantment from the row and hold on to it, and it is only you that gets to turn that in on a future turn. Yes, this one right here says reserve an enchantment or gift it to another player's reserve for 4 points. So the fun little take that of that shop, which is amusing to me, is that you can say, "Hi, Rosie, you need this enchantment." And not only do I get 4 points, but you can't take another reserve while you have that enchantment. But woe is me if you turn in that enchantment and you get a bunch of points, and I lost out on doing that enchantment. But normally
it's super
you
cute
want
though, so I'll just look at the shop and be like,
normally you want the plushie in the Stuffed Magic Dragon shop for yourself, so you reserve an enchantment for you, and then in a future turn, I love to reserve those ones that are like pairs of resources, because you can grab it before you even have the pairs of resources, work on getting your pairs of resources, completely enchant in the meantime with other cards, and then someday get back around to that enchantment.
when you reserve, you should actively give them like a dragon plushie.
Yes. Should be like, I reserved this for you.
Taunt them by having it next to you.
Oh, Tim is responding about the wolf pack. That is awesome.
I mean, I know how it feels. Like I was completely starstruck by being able to work with you guys. I was like, Flamecraft's the best. What? So I know how it feels to get to work on things that you just are so passionate about. It's like amazing. So yeah. And now I have a frog. So
you have a frog and a dragon.
I do have a dragon, which is I think actually based off of the same positioning of Buddy. Interestingly, because Sandara when she drew it was like, just pick a dragon stance. I was like,
So yeah, well, Buddy is also the one that's friends with everyone, so I think it's fitting for
it makes sense. Makes sense.
Someone, let's see, we had another thing. So the other thing I was gonna say about Tim's promo and Ajama's Edge is I had this call with Tim recently where I had to say, by the way, we had to nerf the wolves. They can't be that good. I'm sorry.
Because I played that game with you where Chris just stormed it.
Oh yeah, the wolves were.
And you were like,
they were too good. So we had to tone them down just a little bit, get those wolves in check. They are still really fun. They're actually going to be, people are going to love the wolves. So that's going to be fun.
Does one of them look like Tim?
No, it's the wolf. But now what Sergio did, I wish I had art ready for that because I didn't know we were going to go into it. But what Sergio did is he drew a wolf on top of a ship that looks like a wolf as well. The ship looks like a wolf. So it's pretty cool. It's a spaceship. It's a spaceship that has a wolf bang type front to the whole spaceship. It's pretty neat.
I still love the pirates the most.
Yeah. Well, I was playing Andromeda's Edge yesterday because I am trying to get our team is getting the TTS, just the tabletop simulator version, ready for a lot more people to play and check it out. If you were someone who played either during the campaign or wants to play while you're waiting for your copy or wants to check it out, there's actually a lot of fans on our Discord that play it, know it, and that version's getting an update. I'm hoping for next week, and I was testing some things with it, and I did do well last night with I was playing the Kraln faction, which is this bug faction, and I was infesting the board, and it was great, and I haven't played them a lot at all, and so I was just getting into it. I was like, bugs are invading everybody, and every time I attack someone, I gave a different bug style, a different bug type that attack was. And I said, now you're facing these are roaches and these are ants and whatever. And the bugs, their power is is that when you have a ship on the board, you can actually spawn right with your ship. And you can also, when you build, if you've got more bug ships around, you can actually build for cheaper. So they just tend to swarm, and it's really fun. But it's literally like, I mean, there's so many factions, there's so many different ways to play that I haven't played them for a while. I mean, it's just there's so many, which is great. It's so cool, you know. We're gonna have so much fun with that game.
Axel wants a mini of the Wolfpack's faction ship. If we had minis
You
of all the
know,
factions on top of,
I think it's funny about Andromeda's Edge. We had to make the decision in Andromeda's Edge, the very smart decision, I think, that for minis manufacturing reasons, everybody's transport would be the same. But there was a part of us that was like, oh, what if we could have made everyone's ship slightly different? Now, I'm expecting at some point someone in our community will be like, I'm doing it. I'm making the dragon ship. I'm making the wolf ship. I'm making the cloaking dark star ship. I mean, if this game gets, in people's table rotations and there's enough fans for it, we could definitely see that someday. But it wasn't practical, of course, when you're making the opening. This is the game's minis, which are a lot of minis in the box, right? So it wasn't practical to do that. But
if you can get it to like number 1 on BGG.
Yeah, if we get some hotness. So if everybody could just, when you get your copy, gush and tell everybody, play it a lot of times. I think that's what's going to be really fun is this fall. Sort of another topic is that, Rosie and I are going to UK Games Expo in, what is that?
Not fall, it's summer.
No, so what I'm saying is this fall, it'll be fun to see game conventions with Andromeda's Edge. But we're going to UK Games Expo with the first copy of Andromeda's Edge. And I'm
going to bring sunglasses and a jacket and like bodyguard. Because I've already had a few messages of people being like, right, where is it? Where do I go? And so everyone knows here it's between 1 and 2 on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on Lucky Duck Games' booth. There's an interactive map now on UK Games Expo site, so you can find them because I can't remember it. I think it's like 1-something.
1-638 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And we'll be on one of the little elevated things and we'll show people inside the box. Sadly, we can't run demos because it would be very long. But
yeah,
it's pretty.
It's it's the mass production first copy. So it's also not something we're gonna like beat up. We're actually gonna hopefully approve it immediately. And we're bringing it to well, first of all, Rosie has not played it in person. This is gonna be great. So we are gonna do a little bit of a play, film that, get some stuff, some footage so we can share. We'll do. I know Rosie will eventually do an unboxing so that we can have like the full experience of when you open it up. This summer we're gonna do a lot of content like faction content and how to play and maybe just a quick review, how to set up, all the stuff that will make it easy when you get your copy of Andromeda's Edge to just go. Tim, who is in this chat, is also doing a video. He still is going to do an entire how to play on the final copy. So he did a lot of videos before. He'll do another one that gets everyone like up to speed on everything about the game. And that's going to be really fun to watch too. I think Tim has some really fun ideas that I cannot spoil here about how he's going to film that are going to make it one of the most interesting how to play videos ever. So we don't want to, that's going to be wild to watch that.
And I've seen what he's done with like harvest and stuff where he went to a farm. So I'm curious.
Yeah, there was one where he was covering
going to space. Is he getting on a rocket ship?
He's already talked to SpaceX or somebody. He's going to go to space. Andromeda piece is just kind of like floating everywhere. And then like a piece locks into a transport, just like that. That's what we want to see, Tim. Could you do no gravity Andromeda's Edge video?
I believe
anyway. But anyway, in the fall, what I'm really interested to see is what happens when, when rubber hits the road, when Andromeda's Edge is on somebody else's table, not our table. Does it deliver on everything that we've, there we go. Does it deliver with like everything we've put into it? And if it does deliver, I would expect, and I hope, that it's going to go from Essen, which is where its debut is, to BGG Hotness and get into, BGG Board Game Geek Con in November has their hot games room. And I filmed from this one of these videos from there.
Yeah.
So that was fun. And their hot games room has this like cycling factor where if a game is hot and it keeps hot, then it goes on more tables. And if it's hot and it goes cold, then it comes off the tables and more things come on. So it's just a fun thing to watch if a John Edge can get in there and hold a table, maybe gain a table. That would blow me away if it gained a table. But
for a space game, it's gonna be real hot. I'll be there with a head right.
Yeah. Something else, Show Me the Paw says they're not going, but a friend is going and is going to visit and check out the mini painting because Rosie, also at the Lucky Duck booth, is putting an entire set of painted Flamecraft dragons. Look at that. It's hot dog. That's so cute. You're doing a great job on those minis.
They're so fun. I've also, really if you want to paint, the first one, easiest one to paint, I now know, is coal because it's gray. And you just need to add a little bit of yellow to like warm it up, and then it's just it's gray.
There was an interesting thing that happened with Flamecraft where Sandara made the Iron Dragons, different shades of brown and gray, and they're warm. There's some yellows, there's some grays, different tones of gray. And then Manny was playing the game with people, and no one ever picked gray. Everyone always skipped it. It's boring. It's boring. The gray, I don't like it. So Manny just kept thinking about it, and he was like, "Yeah, what are we gonna do to excite these Iron Dragons up?" And he added a dark blue factor to the resource. I would have one around here. Actually, I have like the see, look at this guy. Same
mine
guy.
are all painted.
Yeah, yours are painted, so you don't have the blue. So he added a blue because he wanted to make sure that nobody, you know how minis come sometimes. They're boring gray sometimes. When you get a game, you get minis and they're just all the same color gray. And to this date, Cardboard Alchemy not done that to anybody. We're going to make sure you get colorful ones right out of the gate, right? So we did this blue. And we thought, okay, but blue is not really in Sandara's art, so they kind of had a little bit of a disconnect. And we had someone come on our Discord and champion gray and say, "I cannot believe you did not fight for gray. Gray is the greatest color." It was a fun discussion about what happened to those minis.
Yeah, I mean, I think Brad's a big fan of the Iron Dragons, right?
Yeah, that's his dragon.
That's his dragon.
Yeah.
So I think that's totally fair. I think it's nice to have a mix. My dad's favorite color is moss green. So, mulch, like moldy green. He just loves it. Swamp.
Yeah, big fan of mulch.
Yeah, really fun one to paint. Really fun. I'm enjoying
mulch is one of my favorite characters, period. Just because it's that interaction. The plant dragons have that interaction with creatures. So mulch is confronting a snail friend, and the mini even includes the snail friend. I did a very nice job with mulch.
Snail friend. So when you were picking, what was the choices made of choosing? Like, because obviously the first set of minis was sort of generic dragon.
We decided on the first set of minis to do no props, so that was a conscious decision because we were also relatively new at making minis. I mean, I had made some minis on Dwellings, and we had made Mission Catastrophe, but we were worried the props would be too complicated, a whole loaf of bread or something. And we were like, oh, let's try and just keep it simple. So we literally instructed Sandara not to do any props. And then Sandara works with the model. In this case, Eric Tosco is the modeler. And so Sandara draws an orthographic. We've shown some of those on the stream where they're poses that are front and side and top. So you can get an idea of where the limbs are and where the tail is. And that was also easier without props. And so Eric then would build the T-pose of the character and then pose the character. And Eric lit up when we said, and now we're going to do props. He was like, oh, now it's on, right? You get to model the shovel and the snail and the pile of dirt and the hot dog skewers. I mean, that's the fun stuff. So on the second one, we went to Sandara and said, now we're going to do props. in preparation for, believe it or not, this is a progression towards Series 3, which will have adventure gear, which we've shown a little bit of. So we wanted to make sure we could do it right. We asked Sandara, which 6 are your favorite to do? Or which 6 do you want to do, given the fact that some things are not possible in minis? Like if there was
Yeah.
a great dragon and it was breathing flame, you can't do a detached flame on the mini. So she picked the ones that she picked. She chose hot dog and mulch and everything. I was very happy
So
she chose.
you didn't sit there like Simon Cowell going through who to pick to go with all the dragons out, going,
We let
moving
Sandara do that.
Maybe Sandara did it. Pulled up her trousers.
Manny, Brad, and I had votes. We would be like, oh, I championed hot dog. I will be honest, that is not the one that she picked. But I love that. I love hot dog.
It's
right?
a good one.
The one that she was going to do, because, and to be fair, the reason why she picked it is she thought it would be easier on everybody, is there was a dragon that I don't even know if he made it into the game, actually, which is funny. It was a dragon holding a big pot, like just a big, huge pot. And it would have been easier because it's attached and then you don't have to model like separate things. We were really nervous that the toothpick factor of this guy would be too hard, But I've seen a lot of complex minis and I really wanted to try it because I felt like if we tried it, then we would be able to do adventuring staffs and things that when we got to the other characters, we needed to know how that would go, right?
Yeah, I think well, they came out amazing. Like I've dropped them loads of times and I was spray painting outside and Loaf just went flying. I was like, bye.
They do have a resiliency to them, which is nice. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed because I'm just playing with hot dog right now, and that stick it's really good.
Yeah.
It's a good. There's a couple different plastics. When I had the footage that we showed of the plant, we were talking a little bit about how there's different plastics you could choose from, and some of them, you'll see. Some of them have advantages because they'll have weapons that are like bows and stuff that are really flexible, but then they'll also have bows that are just kind of like bending and stuff when you have to play with them, leaning to a big extent.
There was a Kickstarter a while back where you could get your own D&D character made as a mini. And so
nice.
my partner has this little archer. And so he sent in like a drawing and then they turned it into a mini. But there's also a company that like scan you to turn you into minis. They had that at Games Expo one time where you could do a pose and then you'd pay and then they'd post it to you in like a month. So and that little bow and arrow, and it was great. So quite amazing what you can get with such thin plastic. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it's well, minis are a lot of fun, and we were working on so one of the things we're doing right now, and I know we'll have to do another stream where we bring out. So what we've shown so far on our next Series 3 dragons is we've shown an ortho from Eric or an ortho from Sandara. We haven't yet shown what Eric did with that ortho. So that's the next thing we're going to show. And then we're going to show the plant and what it makes after it gets that file. And right now, Eric is in heaven because we gave him an assignment to make a very large dragon. I'm not going to go into why we're doing that yet, but we're making a very large dragon. And Eric is like, this is what I've been waiting for, because he's actually been trying
to imagine like how big, like frog, weird crow, what we're talking about.
I mean, I don't know yet of the total size, but
let's hope the frog, everyone.
Imagine that there are some dragons that are this size playing with another dragon. It's going to be something
awesome. It'd be really cool.
We're experimenting because also on Whisperwood, which is a project that we're working on as well, we are going to make some big golems. And one of the things we're trying to do right now is see how much detail needs to go into these bigger ones versus the smaller ones, because you do have more room to get like fine details on there.
So that's for everyone wondering, it's not Gollum from the Lord of the Rings. It's like a golem,
it's not
right?
Golem.
Yes, golem.
Okay, golem. Yes, to get it's in the D&D sense. There's a lot of elemental golems, right? There's some that are rock based and water based and lightning based.
Cthulhu big.
Cthulhu big. Does everyone know what Axel is talking about here? There was a campaign done by
So-
Simon.
My board game cafe, has it. I know what this mini
Big
is.
one. The giant
huge.
thing.
It's
Actually, there's two ones I can think of that were giant. There was one that was a Cthulhu, and then there was Galacton. There was a Marvel one where it was like they just made Galacton like insane. It was it wasn't a mini anymore. It's
not a
literally just
mini. That's
yeah,
just
it's
a
like
model.
a doorstop. It's like, well, the whole thing that was neat about Galacton, and I don't know if this is the same with Cthulhu, is that you could play, and the other minis could go like if you were playing Marvel, you could put the other characters near fighting Galacton, like on Galacton's like shoulders and like fighting, and like you could do. They had scenarios, I think, with the Cthulhu one, like that was the final stage boss, so you could literally play all of your characters fighting it or something.
It's too big.
That is something that, I mean, when you need to make something that has that, when that has to ship, I can't even imagine the cost of shipping that thing. And I don't think we're going to that stage. But never say never. Who knows? We'll be a dragon someday.
Tessie's like, it's the scale.
Right, like we could make a bread dragon to scale someday. That would be something, wouldn't it?
I was just thinking, Hipzilla said something about lawn gnomes, and I was like, how cool would Flamecraft lawn gnomes be?
Yes. See, now we're starting to get somewhere. We just have to come up with a reason to do it, and then Brad.
Do you need a reason to make lawn gnomes lawn dragons?
See, if we did make something bigger, then what we could do is go to a convention and play like a larger Flamecraft game, you know? Well, maybe those are too heavy. We would make the wooden ones. We could make like foam cutouts of the wooden dragons and play.
And for the mat, all we need is a company that makes red carpets and print that off.
Just get the mat done. Yeah. I always love those things at conventions when they have just giant dice to roll.
So what are the giant games that are common at your conventions? Because I've got giant games at mine.
Well,
like I've got
what I often see people do is Catan is often made big, and King of Tokyo is often made big. Yeah, King of Tokyo is made big.
Tsuro, which is just
which one?
Tsuro. Tsuro, which is just like
that one.
They've just got them printed onto like squares from like lining your floor, and then the penguin one, which is the penguin one, which is someone remind me. It's like they're like little ice sticks, and then you pick them up and they all sort of disappear. But I can't remember the name of it now. But it's the penguin one that's always there too.
I've also seen Robo Rally large.
I've seen Giant Ticket to Ride, but it's not as big. I'm talking like floor game for Tsuro, but Ticket to Ride is like the trains are about this big.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, there's Flamecraft where you're moving the pieces around and it's kind of mildly big, and then there's Flamecraft where everyone's a dragon and goes into each spot in town.
You must put on this blow up dinosaur dragon outfit.
That's a whole different level.
We need a whole
well, I would love to keep going, but because this is a fun topic, but I do have to run today. What I will tell everyone is we're going to be back for one more before UK Games Expo, where I will run that with Rosie, and then we might be dark for a week because we're both at the same place at the same time, and that universe hasn't happened yet. And we're going to both be showing Andromeda's Edge at the time, so I don't know that we're going to do a stream on May 31st, but we'll be back with. Right after that, Rosie will.
We have no comprehension of the internet in a building full of hundreds of people.
If we can come on and do something, we will, and we'll post that and everything like that. But there's going to be one more next week where I will hopefully be sharing the latest, even further about Andromeda's Edge. The TTS might be out by then, and so we'll have some fun things to talk about for that. Yeah. In the meantime, I hope everyone has a fun gaming weekend wherever you are. Whatever you can play, travel games, big games, small games.
If you're watching Bridgerton, have a great weekend.
You can find us on Discord to play Andromeda's Edge. What was that?
Bridgerton's out, so maybe everyone's just binge watching that.
All right, yeah, absolutely.
Maybe.
Why did I not lead with that, right?
Right?
Right. All right. It's been fun talking to you, Rosie.
You
And
too.
have a good weekend yourself. Game
Bye.
on, everybody.